Hi, my name is Gummi and I'm an engineer at Nox Medical. In this tutorial I'm using Noxturnal 3.1. Today I will be showing you how you can centralize settings and manage the global versus local settings which are a part of the Noxturnal software. All default settings that you see in Noxturnal are what we call global settings. This means that the default settings are the same for each user on a particular machine. The local settings, on the other hand, are the settings that are saved per user. So if a user changes settings, those settings are saved for that user alone, and those settings override the global settings that are stored on the computer. You can change the default settings for a computer by following a few steps. It's not very simple, but it can be done, and that might simplify many tasks that you need to perform. And also if you need to distribute settings, the same settings over all computers in a network. So this is one way to do it, is to modify the default settings for a specific computer. To do this, you select Tools, Options, and in the Options dialog, select Advanced. Under the Advanced, there are settings directories, and one is for the local settings, and the other one is for the global settings. So what I need to do now is I need to open Local Settings by clicking on the Local Settings link. This will open the location that contains the settings for Noxturnal. All the local settings are stored in this file, noxturnal.en.ndb. All the settings for the recording library are stored in this here, recordingdb.ndb. So you can actually move the recording library to a different machine, but that's always per user. There is no default settings for the recording library. What is stored in the recording library are all the recordings that have been scanned and all the data locations that you added in the recording library. They are not a part of the general settings file. To make your settings, or to change the default settings, you need to do the following. Open up the local settings as I've done, then open up the global settings as well. Here you can see the global settings. It contains the licensing files for this computer. So our licensing schema is always per computer. Then it contains the default settings for different languages. These include German, English, Spanish, French, and Italian. In this case, I want to change the default settings for the English version of the software. So I select the English version. I simply right-click and do copy, and then I move over to the global data, or the local data for the settings for the user, and I need to delete this noxturnal.endb file. It might be a good idea to back this file up because you can always use it to import later on back into the software by going through Tools, Import, Export, Settings. So of course I need to close Noxturnal, and then I can delete this settings file. Delete like this. Then I paste in the settings file I took from the global settings, or for the default settings. I can paste them into the local settings. So this gives me the ability to modify reports or create new reports and things like that, and all my changes will be saved into this file here, or database. Then I can take this database or this file and copy it back to the global settings location, and then all my changes will become default settings for this file, for this computer. So if I start Noxturnal up again, then you can see that everything looks the same as before. You got the same analysis protocol, same reports, etc. So what I can do now is, for example, I can create a new protocol. For example, let's call it test protocol, and let's say we wanted to score position, and I can just save and close, and you can see that now under analysis I have something called test protocol. I can also create a new report template, new template, test report, and let's have it just the marker table or something like that. Save and close, and you can see that I have test report here as well. Okay, so now if I close Noxturnal again, then you can see I still have this database as before. Now I can simply say cut. So I move this database over to my global data, or to my default settings location, and I can paste it here. Yes, overwrite. And now the changes I've made should be stored as default settings, because I copied the settings file. I copied over to the local settings, back to the global settings location, and now it should be available for all the users on this machine. It's very important that you copy the global settings into the local settings, because we don't write anything into the global settings. We always modify the local settings. So it's very important that you copy the global settings into the local settings, make your modifications after you've done that, and then move the database or file back to the global location. So now when I start up Noxturnal, you can see that the local settings file is empty. It's just 10 kilobytes. It's almost empty, and it contains almost no settings at all. So if I expand the report, you can see that my test report is still here, and test protocol is still here. So you can see that now I've modified the default settings for this computer. The settings that you can modify are all the configuration settings, like marker types, signal types, and things like that. All analysis protocols, all report templates, all settings that you can access in the options dialog. You can change here. You can, for example, set the user and company settings and have them saved into your database, or into the default settings. As well, all the layouts that you can generate for a recording are also saved in the file, and will be part of the default settings. There is a different method if you want to make default settings available for all computers on a network, and it requires some advanced administration for the domain. To do this, you need to take your global settings file that you have created on some computer and place it on a network location which is accessible by all the computers on the network that need to read the global settings or the default settings. Then what you can do is you can add an environment variable for each user, and this can be done on a domain level. What I'll show you here is how you can add it just for a single user. So to add an environment variable for a single user, you need to access the system properties. Right click on my computer and go into properties, and then you need to select environment variables, and this gives you a list of all the environment variables that are available for your computer. I have here the variable needed for this to work. So this is the name of the environment variable and can common configuration path. You simply add this variable here in, and then you add, for example, a network folder or something like that, like server folder, and then when Noxturnal starts up, it will first go into this path to see if it finds a configuration file to use with Noxturnal. Like I said, this environment variable can be set on a domain level for all users. So each user that logs in will log in with this environment variable already running. And this way you can centralize settings, the default settings for an entire domain. So this is an overview of how you can manage settings in Noxturnal to make them globally available, or to change the default settings for a single computer or for an entire domain. So I hope this helps. Thank you.